Aradhya will join. Yeah.
All right, sir. Good morning. My name is Catherine, and I am a research fellow at MRC. I'll start my presentation. My presentation is about Indus Basin water management from a UDA perspective. I'll be giving a brief introduction about what Indus Water Basin management looks like today, what is the context, and a little bit about what eastern and western rivers what are the eastern and western rivers like, and a small case study on Kishan Ganga dispute, and some of the issues in the management of Indus Basin today. So Indus Basin is shared between Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, and India. And as you can see, India has a considerable portion of the Indus Basin, about 39%, and Pakistan holds 47% of the basin. Within India, Indus Basin is shared between Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan, and Haryana. Indus Water Treaty was signed in 1960, and grossly, the result of the treaty was that the eastern rivers, namely Satluj, Beas, and Ravi, were given to India for exclusive use, and the western rivers, namely the Indus, Chenab, and Jhelum, were given to the Pakistan for exclusive use, except for hydropower development and usage by India. The resulting quantitative allocation was about 170 cubic kilometer of the western tributaries went to Pakistan, and 62.21 kilometer cube went to India. And the whole of eastern tributaries contributed 11.1 kilometer cube, which is being used by India. Before trying to understand how we are managing Indus Basin today, it is necessary that we understand the events that led to the formulation of the treaty. So the treaty was formulated in 1960, but it took about 10 years to 10 years of dialogue and deliberation to arrive at that treaty. So we were recently partitioned. So after the partition, India and Pakistan were in a very flux-like situation where they were defining their boundaries, they were defining their own sovereignty. So and at that juncture, Kashmir issue was a high point. And when the water sharing became a very contentious point, because the irrigation system was developed by British, and when they partitioned, the Radcliffe line was drawn in such a way that most of the headwork was in India and the irrigation field were in Pakistan, Western Punjab. So when in such a situation, India was at a point where they wanted food security for its own people. So they wanted the water for its for developing their irrigation system. And Pakistan was newly partitioned. They didn't have the infrastructure to let go of the eastern rivers. So there was a huge contention in Indus River. And Kashmir, where most of the river is originating, was already the India and Pakistan were already.
Catherine, 1 minute. Admiral sir, I can hear her. Can you hear her, sir? You are not audible, sir. You are now muted, sir. We are able to hear her, sir. Kindly unmute yourself, sir, Admiral sir. Can you hear us, sir? Sir, you may, Admiral sir, you may unmute yourself and, log out and log in again probably. We cannot hear you, sir. Okay, Catherine, continue. We'll share the recording with sir. Catherine, please continue.
Okay, sir. Territory and sovereignty were a huge issue back then. And then the riparian positioning. India is upstream for most of the rivers, and Pakistan being a downstream state, they had concerns regarding the security issue, water security, and other strategic issues which were plaguing Pakistan. And as Kashmir is the origin point for most of the rivers, Pakistani claim on Kashmir for water security was also increasing. And India wanted total sovereignty over the eastern rivers for its own food security problems. At this juncture, there were a lot of internal conflicts also. Both of the countries were developing nations, and poverty was plaguing, and so there were internal conflicts um, on food security, water security, and there were constant conflicts between the society and the governments. And at this point, David E. Lilienthal, an American technocrat, a water expert, he, observing the situation from outside, decided to analyze the situation. He came to India. He did an assessment and he wrote a paper, and saying how the situation needs um, a holistic perspective on water management. And World Bank got interested, and World Bank was already interested because it was a young institute. They had lending programs in both India and Pakistan. So this particular problem became crucial for the World Bank's interest as well. So they proposed to mediate the whole problem between India and Pakistan. And at the same time, a lot of Western policymakers were also interested. Although US wasn't directly involved in what was happening, but the details of the issue were discussed over there as to how that will affect their economy, because they were fearing another Cold War. And then we had other donors who were donors such as US and the World Bank, who were interested in what's happening, because Pakistan needed infrastructure. And as Pakistan was creating that want to create that infrastructure, they needed funds from donors. And at that point, there was also a debate between politics and science. Although Nehru and Ayub had their own concerns, science took a back seat. Though it's one basin, it had to be looked at from a perspective so that politically the instability is reduced. Looking at all these events that were taking place and how the World Bank negotiated a treaty, it became a success story nevertheless, because for about 60 years now, we haven't had any major war, or I mean, even though Pakistan and India has had many standoffs, and this particular treaty was never touched. So this has been applauded by world over as a major success story. But today we have some issues on both western rivers and eastern rivers. the Western rivers is plagued by some backwardness with respect to economic development. The hydropower that we want to develop from the natural the water flow that's happening there is being obstructed by Pakistan on a regular basis for most of our major projects on the Western rivers. And that has led to a lot of tension between both the countries. And there are issues of flood management and sediment management. And although the treaty has not faced major opposition, but Pakistan has had continuous objections regarding its interpretation of the treaty. And then, of course, we have terrorism around the whole Indus Basin and Kashmir issue. On the eastern rivers, the major issues that we are facing today are regarding the value addition farm income deterioration. So there the major states that use the eastern rivers are Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Jammu and Kashmir, and Delhi. So since the water stress is increasing, the way the water is used, the water is getting polluted. So these are major issues. The water and soil quality management is a huge issue on the eastern rivers. And the canal system, which was built during the British time, is almost 200 years old, and it is facing severe silting. And these are some of the concerns that we have on the eastern rivers. The treaty provides a sound mechanism for conflict resolution. It has survived many wars and standoffs. And so we have a permanent Indus Commission set up with a commissioner from India and commissioner from Pakistan. They meet once a year and they discuss major issues regarding the basin management. And if the PIC is not able to solve any issue, the differences, if it's of a technical nature, it is referred to a neutral expert. And if it pertains to the interpretation of a treaty, it is referred to by a court of arbitration. There have been many disputes between India and Pakistan regarding major projects set up by India. But one of the major ones that led to many debates and deliberations is Kishanganga conflict, which is regarding the Kishanganga power plant on the Kishanganga River, which is a tributary of Jhelum. So as you can see in the diagram, the Kishanganga the dam is supposed to be built on the Kishanganga stream, tributary, which is upstream. And from there, the water is tunneled through the KHEP tunnel to a power plant. And then the water is then rejoins the Jhelum tributary. What Pakistan contested was that by doing this, India is going to reduce the flow in the Kishanganga River, and that reduction in flow will impact their thousands of acres of agricultural land and their own power plant, which is downstream, NJHEP power plant. Neelam Jhelum power plant also follows a similar design, and Pakistan hadn't conceived of that plan before India. It was after India's proposal that Pakistan also proposed a similar project. So now coming to the treaty, what does the treaty say? The treaty says that the transfer of water from one tributary to the another can be done. It is not allowed in general circumstances, but it can be allowed in cases where it doesn't bother the existing agricultural use or hydroelectric use by the downstream nation, which is Pakistan. But when Court of Arbitration analyzed this issue, they found that Pakistan is concerned about future uses, which might be affected. So they ruled in India's favor, saying that Pakistan's interpretation is not to be taken up in this particular case. And Pakistan also contested that minimum, because the water is going to be taken from one tributary to the another, a minimum environmental flow also needs to be maintained by um, India. And then another point of contestation where was drawdown flushing. So the ecology of a river is not just by maintaining a minimum flow. It also needs sediments. Sediments are also an important part, and sediment is not only necessary for the river ecosystem, but also for the life of the dam. I mean, we don't want it to silt up within 1 or 2 seasons. So it is very important in the designing of the dam also as to how you are going to take care of the sedimentation problem. So, and this is where technological interventions are very important, and we don't have enough provisions in the treaty to take care of the developments in the technological interventions. So what happened in Kishanganga case is that India had planned to use a drawdown flushing method to clear the sediments, because the previous project that India was involved in, the Salal project on Chenab, got sedimented, it got filled up with sediments within 2 seasons. Learning from this lesson, for the Baglihar Dam, which came next, India insisted drawdown flushing, which was by Pakistan. But then a neutral expert was called in for the technical dispute, and he had allowed a drawdown flushing system. Encouraged by this, in Kishanganga as well, they designed drawdown, but the Court of Arbitration rejected it because they agreed with Pakistan's security concerns. Pakistan was concerned that drawdown facility will provide India with a manipulable storage of water, because of so they can create man-made droughts or flooding based on their will. So clearing India's power over upstream power over Pakistan, Court of Arbitration agreed with Pakistan, and they asked India to change the design to remove drawdown flushing. There are other means. So in this way, even though it's a win-win situation, it sounds like India got the approval to build the dam. We are still faced with a lot of other problems. And the treaty doesn't actually give us the proper instructions, or the flexibility to make sure that the concerning issues, because of let's say Himalaya being a young mountain, sedimentation is a huge issue that wasn't dealt with in the treaty. Similarly, the other technological interventions that are required, the flexibility to manage it based on state-of-the-art technology, is also not given in the treaty. So coming up from all these issues that India has faced because of Pakistan's fears, basically, India sent an issue, a notice of amendment on 25th January 2023. The key trigger was Rattle project on Chenab, where after Pakistan objected, Pakistan asked for a court of arbitration, but India wanted a neutral expert because the problem was mostly technical. World Bank, not knowing what to do, they initiated both the process simultaneously, which didn't sit well with India. So India kind of wanted some amendment to the treaty so that there is some clarity on how to take disputes forward. Even though it has been a successful treaty in terms of maintaining peace for so long, the treaty needs to keep up with the changing times. And also another important drawback of how we are managing the basin today is the lack of data. The Indus Basin is shared between four riparian states: Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and China. And none of them seem to have how much water is flowing, a clear data on how much water is flowing, how much is being used. And given the situation that we have changing climate impacts on rivers, which needs to be closely monitored, the current situation is kind of grim when it comes to the fact that millions of people are dependent on the basin, and the government and the policymakers aren't completely sure of how much water we have. Um, so, what is the need for for treaty revision today? Basically, it can be divided into three major concerns. First, the policy and treaty provision shortcomings related to, let's say, groundwater, water quality management, the dispute mechanism, and the need for taking in the concerns of climate change, etc. And then we have the technology and data insufficiency. We don't have opportunity for flexible technological interventions. Our data is insufficient to make any sound decision. That will be a second concern. And thirdly, the geopolitical and geostrategic concerns. Given the fact that the economic instability in countries such as Pakistan is impacting its ability to participate in the management, and the fears surrounding the upstream nations, power. So all of these concerns need to be taken into consideration, and the countries need to come together to make sure that the lot of the fear surrounding the treaty is subsided, and the priority is given more to the health of the basin and general people, the public, and the livelihood in general. So my recommendations regarding the revisions: the treaty has was a successful it's a successful treaty, but it shouldn't be undermined. The treaty has survived for so long. It has managed to make sure that both the countries have, even though there have been disputes, both the countries are somewhat in a stable condition with respect to how the water is distributed. But without abrogating the treaty, we need to find ways to include revisions and amendments, and to make sure that our Indus Basin, which is already a closed basin, all its water has been distributed between all the stakeholders. There is no water to spare. Unlike Brahmaputra, which is a surplus basin right now, we haven't made much use of all the waters there. But Indus Basin is already overutilized. It's under a lot of pressure, and we might be in where the water is like sufficient, or at least borderline sufficient for everybody, but the situation might not be the same tomorrow. So from a futuristic perspective, we need to plan ahead and make sure that the water that we are using is used sustainably. We are managing it in such a way that both the countries, mainly Pakistan and India, make use of the water in a sustainable manner and take steps both. So there needs to be a collaboration between the academicians, collaboration between the politicians, at least, even though they might have a lot of other disputes or other problems. When it comes to river, we have to come and sit together and discuss details of how Indus Basin can be brought to its previous glory. So my recommendations would be an ecosystem-based framework. So this is partly inspired from the marine spatial planning, which is an ecosystem-based framework. So where sustainability, environmental needs, and climate change is adequately addressed. We need a futuristic perspective where the technological innovations are incorporated with flexibility, with periodic revision of how we are making use of the advancements that's happening. And the existing reservoirs and infrastructure needs to be made sustainable, particularly from the sediment management perspective. And each river, another important issue is here that the whole river basin has been distributed into eastern and western rivers, and there is one rule applied to all. So which is not practical, or which is not solving the issues on ground. We need river specific provisions in the treaty which incorporate knowledge regarding the biophysical and social economic impacts of human activities on the rivers based on that particular tributary or river. And another important factor which is not taken into consideration is the groundwater crisis and the transboundary aquifer. India and Pakistan is sharing a huge aquifer, and it hasn't been mapped, and both the countries are largely silent about the pressure on the groundwater because of the intensive agriculture happening on both sides. So from futuristic perspective, we need to address this issue. And then spatial planning framework. Um, we need to have, I mean, this is again inspired from the marine spatial planning framework, where where zoning and mapping is given a huge importance. So taking it from there, we need state of the art water quality and flow monitoring systems to be set up. We have no idea about how much water is going into Pakistan, how much is getting wasted, how much is needed by the environment for its health. So all of these needs to be mapped properly before we actually take it to the policy intervention level. And we need rigorous climate change monitoring and data collection. And of course, there needs a cross-institutional, multilateral communications and multidisciplinary approach that brings together policy, society, and science. So the policy interventions needs to, so after bringing in all the tools necessary for the policy interventions, what are the major things that we need to be aware of? First of all, we need to have a sound balance between socio-political goals and scientific understandings. And then we need to address the food security issues. And then the bilateral relation between India and Pakistan needs to be strengthened in some way or the other, majorly in from scientific and technological perspective. We can initiate collaborations and transactions, at least between the scientific communities. And then China's influence, although not discussed a lot during the presentation, China has been influencing the Indus Basin management both directly and indirectly. It has been sponsoring a lot of projects in Pakistan, and China is also stationing a lot of its military in Pakistan. So India and some of the Indus rivers, which are Indus Basin rivers, originate from Tibet, which is now under the control of China. So India needs to actually strategize itself as a regional leader, balancing the influence of China and making sure that its relationship with Pakistan and it's more cordial, at least in terms of water management. And we managed to make Indus Basin water management a sustainable event. And to bring this all together, at this day and age, without digital intervention, without deploying a lot without deploying the necessary technology for monitoring and assessing the health of basin. Without digital intervention, we cannot take the treaty to the next step, the management to the next step. And with underwater domain awareness, which is the framework which brings together the environment, corporate science and research, and national security. UDA promises to bring together a sound, comprehensive plan to manage the Indus Basin and similar basins, transboundary basins especially. A proper management plan which brings together water quality management, climate resilience, food and energy security, technological innovations, flood and sediment management, linking them together with farm practices and income management, and also acknowledging the ecosystem services and combining it with marine spatial planning. So underwater domain awareness framework actually gives us a splendid opportunity to combine river management in a more comprehensive way. I would like to thank you for this opportunity um, with this statement. It says that the problems have existed for so long, but it has accelerated now because of the social, economic, and technological developments. Because of our demands, we are putting a lot of pressure. So now we need, without any rigid system, we need to take it up and bring in a new flexible approach in allocation to future-proof water management. The problem started from us, so we need to have, and the problems are changing every day, so we need to have a flexible approach. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Catherine. It was indeed a comprehensive presentation, and you have been contributing significantly to this particular subject at very high level. So I really congratulate for your deep understanding. I'll now call upon Aradhya to kindly make her presentation. Aradhya, please introduce yourself as well. All yours, Aradhya.
Thank you, sir, for. Am I audible? Hello?
Go ahead. Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, sure. I just share my screen. Thank you, sir, for that warm welcome. Okay, so good morning to one and all present over here. So my name is Aradhya Kapoor. I'm a Communications and Advocacy Fellow at MRC. The topic for today is the tyranny of small decisions. The flow for the presentation would be as following, and we'll start with understanding what this entire concept is all about. So this concept was for the first time coined by an economist, Alfred E. Kahn, in 1966. And he had explained it using an example, especially the shutdown of the railway system in Ithaca, New York. So over there, people used to use railway as the most common mode of transport. But during cold weather, they used to prefer cars, buses, or flights as the other mode of transport. And over the couple of years, the government started facing economic losses because of that. So the government had to take this decision of shutting down the railway system altogether. This outcome was not favorable for all the citizens for the obvious reasons, because cars, like, they used to get stuck in traffic, or they had to afford expensive flight tickets. So, but this outcome, why did it happen? It happened at the first place because of the individual decision which they took at that point in time, because of the personal interest. Like, they did not want to get delayed, because the railways were getting delayed because of the cold weather and all. But the impact of that was that government was facing economic losses, and that's why they had to shut it down altogether. So these individual decisions, though we take for our personal interest, they might seem minor at that point in time, but they have a longer term consequence which we are not aware, and they might not be favorable for all of us and for the community. So with that note, this concept was further extended by Garrett Hardin, an environmentalist, in the context of environmental degradation. So in 1968, he wrote an essay on tragedy of commons. So what does this commons signify? The commons refer to the resources which are shared by all. For example, air, water, the forest, the other resources shared by all of us. But as we are using them, we continuously exploit them for our personal interest, and we keep on degrading them. And that's what is the tragedy of commons signifies. So with that note, our ocean system have also a lot to offer, right? They are a source of drinking water, medicines, food, petroleum and minerals. They are the largest carbon sinks helping in the climate regulation. They're a source of livelihood, as well as recreational activities. Plus, they are a nursery to millions of underwater species. So they have a lot to offer. And we have been exploiting them for ages. But this exploitation has taken a toll on the ocean health altogether, which is highlighted in my this slide. So around 600 crore people face extreme water stress. Around 2 lakh people die every year because of the inadequate access to water, as per NITI Aayog report. And then Indian Ocean has reported around 18.83 million tons of plastic by waste, of which 1 million were shoes and 3,70,000 were toothbrushes. In Tamil Nadu, around 250 billion whales and 30 caracases were stranded at Tiruchendar beach, as you can see in this picture. So these are certain horrific incidences which highlight how our ocean systems are getting degraded. And why is it happening is because of these reasons. I've taken a couple of reasons. There are a lot to the plate. I've just highlighted a few of them, which I found relevant. So starting with plastic pollution, I'll go further. Okay. So plastic pollution, the prevalent use of single-use plastic, and then this extensive trading which is done by shipping, along with the improper waste disposal by industries and households, all of them are major contributors to this plastic pollution, which end up in the ocean ecosystem and affects the marine species. Either they get entangled, like it entangles them, or they digest them, resulting in a decline in the marine species population. Another example of tyrannous small decisions would be acoustic habitat degradation. So loud noises produced by either seismic air guns or low ambient frequency sounds, which are produced by shipping vessels, they interfere with the sound which these marine species use for communication purpose, which is called as auditory masking. Or they can even damage these waves could damage their epithelial membrane, affecting their mating or navigation capabilities, again decreasing their overall population. Another example would be urbanization. With the rampant urbanization, there would be a rising demand in agriculture. And it's a fact that 90% of the agriculture is dependent on water, and which happens in India itself. So that is another contributor to the water crisis. The groundwater keeps on getting depleted for these purposes. To top it up is the governance issues. So our water has been regulated by two major agencies in India. And because of their two major agencies handling it, there are a lot of rules and regulations by different agencies, by these different organizations. So as a result, there is a lot of confusion. The water policy has been revised 4 times. So it keeps on revising, and there's no clarity where are we heading. There's lack of transparency in the disclosure of the water risk spanning across industries, households. How is the water being utilized, and what's the demand? So how it is being polluted. So there is a lot of data which is lacking, and plus there's not involvement much of the riverine and the coastal communities because they have been practicing various traditional practices, which if we scale, we can do much better, which might help us in water management. So another aspect of governance issue would be Jal Jeevan Mission, which they had launched in 2019. So that had assured the provision of tap water to the marginalized sections of the society. But in Nagpur, there were protests around 2019 itself, where people revolted that there are taps, but there's no water in that. So these are certain disturbing facts which we really need to look at, and these highlight that how we are contributing, how our individual decisions, right from plastic pollution to sound generation to the rapid population growth and governance issues, are contributing to the degradation of the oceans as well as the freshwater system. Moving ahead, I've taken one case study, Delhi water crisis study, which we'll be going through. So in 2019, Delhi was the second major city after Chennai, which ran out of water. So for Delhi, the major sources of raw water is Yamuna River, followed by, as you can see in the graph, second one being Ganga River, and then Bhakra storage, and the rest comes from the groundwater, which accounts for 9% of the total water supplied to Delhi. So in 2019 itself, the total projected demand, water demand, was around 1,260 million gallons of water per day, but Delhi Jal Board was able to cater to only 937 mgd of water. So there is a clearly lag of 323 mgd of water. To top it up, there are uneven rainfall in Delhi. 70% of rainfall was observed in November and December. So in case rainfall does not happen, the reliance is on tankers and piped water supply in Delhi. So just to summarize, the factors which are driving these Delhi's water crisis is the current water supply demand of 323 million gallons of water per day, as we saw in the last slide, is because of the extraction by the public as well as the private tankers, the extreme concretization and unauthorized structures which are being constructed that prevent these aquifers being recharged and leads to lower groundwater levels. Another is that these these surface water, they are highly polluted because of the untreated effluents which are being discharged by the industries in Haryana and the nearby areas of Delhi, which are leading to rising ammonia levels, as well as the regular practice of dumping waste into the rivers by the households as well as industries is another factor. Then there's next to these pipelines runs sewage lines, which are in some cases leaky, and that also leads to poor quality of water. Okay, then comes the wastewater handling irregularities. So around 720 mgd of wastewater is generated in Delhi, and these are the results of 2019 survey. Of which only 6% was treated because of the functional capacity of around 35 wastewater treatment plants. And there's only not 100% sewage network coverage. There's just 78% coverage by the sewage network. Another issue with the water crisis is the wastage, because during the transmission process, there has been accounted 40% distribution loss when the water gets supplied because of the leaky pipes and the illegal withdrawing of water from these pipelines. So as a result of all these factors, these low groundwater, poor quality, irregular handling of wastewater, these private tankers, they charge heavily from the poor families for getting the water supply. Then there's an additional burden on the women itself, because they are the ones who have to stand in long queues to get water. They wait for, so especially during 2019 when 2020 there was this COVID crisis, people were seen climbing on tankers and there were violence outbursts. Plus, the water supply gets cut to hospitals, hotels across. It happened across central, south, and west Delhi. So, what are the gaps and challenges? The rapid population growth, especially with the rise in population growth, there's going to be an increase in the water demand, increase in agriculture, and power demand. Plus, there's lack of awareness amongst the citizens how to manage these resources. There's poor tracking system, like how much of the water are we utilizing, how much is available. So that needs to be taken into consideration, both households as well as industries. As well as there needs to be a track of how are these industries discharging, how are they treating the wastewater which they are discharging into the river system. So there's still not there are CSR policies, but there's not full-fledged policies streamlined till now. Then comes the poor infrastructure. There's extreme concretization, as I mentioned earlier. The leaky pipelines, the poor drainage network, all just tops up the water stress situation. Plus the lack of funds. There's a gap between the income which is generated from water. As you all are aware of, over subsidies subsidizing water for the farmers, and most of them going to, like, 90% of the water in India goes to agriculture. So there's lack of the income which is generated from water, and that is required for maintenance. Next one is, of course, the our tropical climate just is the cherry on the top, which coupled with the climatic changes which are happening. So that's where we need to take action immediately. Sorry. That's why there comes our UDA framework, which thrives on three pillars. First one being outreach, which would focus primarily on increasing awareness amongst various stakeholders, right from policymakers, academia, community engagement, both at the local and the state level. And then engagement would primarily focus on enhancing the regional cooperation across various frameworks, because we have multiple frameworks, right? IORAs, BIMSTAT, and so we need a cooperation along them by establishing MOUs and SOPs with the relevant stakeholders. The most important pillar of our engagement is skilling the youth of India, because they are the ones who are going to contribute to India's economic growth. So we'll focus primarily on the UD framework, will primarily focus on capacity building so that they are trained with the efficient skills for the industries. Then sustenance would focus on data, because without data, we will be not reaching anywhere. We need to track data, we need to see through the data. And so for that, we need to process that data through various advanced algorithms, have these data centers established, and a streamlined approach to process this data so that the policymakers can take appropriate decisions. And lastly would be practicing sustainability, focusing primarily on marine spatial planning, sediment management for the freshwater system, flood management, climate resilience studies. So yes, with that, I would like to end this presentation. And as Robert Swan had rightly mentioned, the greatest threat to our planet is that we think that someone else will save it. So if we don't take action right now, who else is going to take it? So we really need to think. On that note, I'm just going to end that. Are we really taking steps enough to manage our freshwater and ocean system? Thank you all. That's it from my end.
Thank you, Aradhya. It was a good presentation. Unfortunately, today we are missing two of our other project fellows, Khwaish. She is working on the socio-economic and socio-political and socio-cultural dimension, and how involvement of communities is very important. And also Divya Rai, who would have given us a larger geopolitical and framework, and how India could play a major role in the regional geostrategic interventions. Both of them are unwell, so we just cannot, but we will definitely record their presentation and make it available to our esteemed guests. And please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and all these presentations will also be available there. And I must also thank my team, Sridhar, Catherine, Shreya, Ayush, Jay, everybody at the back end, Catherine, of course, who have put this all together, and and this is an ongoing process, as you are aware. There's so much more to be done, as you all know, and we will definitely continue our efforts. So I would request comments from the guest. Admiral sir, your comments, please.
Well, I missed 50% of the presentation because of some issues. Catherine's presentation really hooked me on. Only one thing is, I saw also that China is one of the riverine basins for the Indus. I was not aware of that. And what are they doing about it? What is it that I didn't understand? Notwithstanding, I'll go through your YouTube thing and get myself better educated, and then we can have a chat on that. Yeah, as far as Arjia is concerned, tyranny of small decisions applies to everything in life. We are only bothered about the present and never about the future. It's seen everywhere, and I'm glad you brought it out in terms of water and water management, because that is true. We don't know how much we have, so we don't know how much we can give and what we need to save for the future. So data is very important, but the basic thing is governance. Unless and individuals have to understand that what we consume today is not going to be available for our own future generations. Unless that kind of a thing comes into the public thing, whatever the government does, and with the pressure on the politicians to deliver, it'll always be tyranny of small decisions. So I'm really looking forward to how UDA can help from getting the tyranny of small decisions to take the larger future thing. That will definitely be very useful for the and how we'll be able to convince the people who govern us to follow this framework to be for the future of our own country. And water is one thing which people are giving very less. Uh, in the recent past, we've heard that parts of South Africa don't have water. We've heard, so many areas where there is no water. It happens in our life every day. But then there are always these tankers. They manage to get the water. I don't know how, but they definitely get the water. Pune is a well-known city where several societies don't have water, but they have to buy water from this. And how these chaps get the water to supply to us, we don't know. So that is all part of the governance, and I hope the UDA framework will be able to solve this. It'll be a big thing for most of the for the population. Uh, Thank you very much. I'm sorry that we could not hear the other two things. Because this particular section was putting, bringing everything under the UDA framework. So looking forward to this section. But anyway, I'm sure that we'll hear them later. Once again, congratulations to the fellows. People are taking up topics which are of absolute relevance, and also putting it across pretty forcefully. And with Arnab around and Dr. Banerjee, Dr. Chakravarti, all these people, I'm sure you'll be able to get uh, the people in power to listen to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Soman sir, I would request your comments, sir. You're muted, sir.
Thank you once again, Marcy, for giving me this opportunity to attend this seminar, and also for the wonderful presentations both by Catherine and Kapoor. Fortunately, today I could understand both of them. And for the last 2 days, half of it went over my head because I've not mentioned that. But also, I would like to thank Vice Admiral Verma for today's giving this much of wisdom, which gives a new focus each time I hear him. So I'm really grateful that I'm present in his company. But straight away coming to the presentation, and also, of course, our director who is, I don't know how he thinks, his horizon is so vast that each time he gives a report, immediately I try to imbibe it and think in that direction. So thank you, Dr. Arnav, for giving that direction always. It's very useful for me personally. As far as Catherine is concerned, I would like to congratulate you for a lovely presentation. And I have three questions to ask. First question is that what is the alternate for drawdown? You mentioned in the passing, I left it there. I'm very happy to do research on that. Secondly, is that when you said ecosystem approach, the ecosystem approach only concerns environment, but does not concern growth and prosperity of the people. So, so how do you link that? Because SDG is sustainable development and growth. So the growth aspect somehow I did not understand. Maybe you said it in many ways, but how do you combine growth and ecosystem in this water management treaty is what I would like to know, because I'm not clear. And third thing is, that would you like to write a paper on this with me? Because just now, I have written two papers on sustainable peace, which is published in the Indian Foreign Affairs Journal and Indian Ocean Research Journal. And also, just 2 days back, the UN has come out with a new agenda on peace. Now, if you see this water management treaty is about the new agenda on peace. There are some peace actions which have been promulgated. It is different from the original peace agenda of 1990. So it is just 2 days back it was published by UN. There are a lot of critiques also on it. But however, in an international journal, say for example, there's a journal on water management. The theory is sustainable peace. As of now, we can change the theory, but if you're interested, Catherine, we can do a paper together and publish it in some journal which will be read and understood by people. And a lovely concept that I think here stop at Catherine and Aradhya Kapoor. So, Aradhya, thank you so much. And I really like your direction, tyranny of small decisions and comments. So, uh, brilliant. But as Admiral mentioned, that when we write policy paper, we need to identify what are the policies already existing and what are the gaps. And then, thereafter recommend how do we plug these gaps? Where are the hurdles? So, so therefore, again, once again, a proposal to you and a question, of course, that are you interested in writing a paper? There is an Indian Ocean Journal in which I have already written. And also, just for your information, I was running the Police Center Abhiyan for the MOD for the last 2 years before I retired, which is about plastics. There are also about ecosystem, some papers in other journals. If you're interested, we could do, but we have to, narrow down to one topic. It could be plastics, it could be water pollution, it could be animal fishing, anything. One aspect. A lot of data already available with because I made a presentation to the UNEP, United Nations Environment Program sponsored by the Norwegian Embassy this year in February. So there is a lot available. The MRC can become the launch platform for topics that are relevant for us. So that's all. That's where I will stop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Certainly, I mean, writing a paper is definitely, I mean, we as a MRC would definitely encourage all our research fellows, and your leadership will definitely give the right direction that it deserves. And it's an ongoing process, as you are aware, sir. I mean, I'm personally delighted at the way our research fellows have been working. And you are aware, sir, I mean, we have a steady flow of interns from very good institutions. So even for these two work also, I mean, what Aradhya has presented and what Catherine has presented, there will be many young interns who will try and fill up the specific gaps. And our research fellows do a broad policy work, and the interns basically fill up the technical gaps. I mean, that's the way we work. And of course, sir, we'll take this discussion forward, and it's anyway always work in progress. So we will seek your intervention and participation. So thank you very much for your comments, sir. Sir, Admiral, sir, please.
Yeah, I just want to, sorry, I'm, Soman, thank you very much, for saying all those good things. But under your leadership, and having had exposure to all these things, I'm sure the young fellows and the interns can be put in the right track so that this whole project becomes fruitful. I'm glad you brought this out and came forward. The other point which I just wanted to mention was, uh, Someone, I would like to meet you sometime and tickle your brains for some of the ignorance that I have on these subjects and benefit from it. Okay, so we'll fix up something where we can meet and have a with Arnav around, who will be the you know facilitator and the arbitrator, when both of us will sit down together and have a chat, right?
I was proposing a joint paper, sir. So I can help anybody who's interested can write. I will provide the theory. Thank you for your encouragement, sir, and really look forward to meeting you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Dr. Chakravarti, sir, you may like to give your comments, sir. I didn't ask you in the last 3 days, but today, since we could discuss. Dr. Chakravarti, sir.
The mesmerizing sessions. Mesmerizing sessions. We are more than 200 people over here hearing you for the last so many days. What you people are doing are wonderful. So auspicious, so futuristic, so holistic things. And we want to see all of your faces every day in the morning, from morning to evening. We'll leave all our jobs to listen you all and to join you all. If in any place, any livelihood projects come to you on the shishos or anywhere, we are here to help you, and support our people. So let us also give a small chance. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your very positive comments, sir. We are definitely, I mean, what is the point, as Ambassador Mudgal had also mentioned, and Admiral Sir has been also saying, I mean, to have a idea or have the knowledge doesn't make sense unless it gets converted to solutions. And of course, livelihood for the community is a very important requirement, and we are definitely committed to it. To be honest, we have not done much work, but we are definitely now looking at the next level. As I had mentioned, we are now going in for deployment of sensors, and I think our backend team is now very well equipped to, I mean, our mission and mandate in any case was doing real world problem solving, not giving any more theories or knowledge. I mean, I think there is enough now, but how to implement it on the ground is our focus. So definitely, sir, we'll be in touch, and we'll take this discussion forward. Any other participant would like to make any comments? We would encourage that. Otherwise,
सर
I
जी,
think
सोने की चिड़िया था हमारा देश, गोल्डन स्पैरो थी हमारे देश. हमारी ये लीगेसी को आप लोग आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं, और ये हम लोग बिलीव करते हैं. ऐसे अगर हम लोग आगे बढ़ते हैं, आप लोग अगर मार्गदर्शक देते हैं, तो फिर ये देश हमारा सोने की चिड़िया ही होने वाले हैं, गोल्डन स्पैरो ही होने वाले हैं. थैंक यू सर. थैंक यू ऑल.
thank you. Thank you so much. So we'll end for the day. Thank you very much all for participation, and Catherine and Aradhya, of course, for a very good presentation. And Admiral Sir, Soman Sir, thank you very much for joining us again today, sir. Thank you so much. We will be sharing all the recordings, and even some of our fellows and interns who could not attend for various reasons, their presentation will also be recorded and put in the larger framework that will be shared with everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and all the best to everybody in MRC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
So
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mehul, once again, and Catherine for coordinating the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.